Welcome to the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation's late summer garden stroll in celebration of Stanley Anderson's 100th anniversary of his firm. My name is Jennifer McGregor, and I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation, and we look forward to Paul Bergmann's presentation. We're super fortunate to have Paul so embedded in our community and a partner of the Foundation for so many years. And it's so wonderful to see so many of these wonderful faces here. A lot of new faces that we want to encourage to please join the Foundation, and you can easily do so with the very convenient QR code out at the registration table. But we also see so many of our partners and our long-standing contributors to the Foundation here, and we're just proud to have you all here and consider you our friends. We're also really thankful to have such a talented and passionate board, led by our new president, Henry Kleeman. Would love to have all of our directors please stand now to be recognized. Thank you so much. And the programs committee, led by Jim Obsidnik and Steve Bedrin. We thank them for all of their hard work in putting today's very, I wouldn't say complicated, but there are a lot of moving parts to put today's program together. So thank you, Jim and Steve, for all of your hard work. And I have to put my glasses on just because there are some really great names that I'd like to recognize, and I don't want to misspeak. So today we have our fabulous walk. We have many homes that are part of this wonderful garden stroll. But we especially thank Jim and Elaine Obsidnik, and Jim is walking away. We are having the reception at their home, which was the residence of Stanley Anderson. So that's really just a wonderful full circle moment for all of us to have a great glass of wine and to celebrate together. We also want to thank the Sarvers, the Remenschneiders, the Bilshevskis, the Dancius, and the McCallums. So thank you all for opening your properties for us today. Thank you. So before we get started, we're pleased to announce we have a formal corporate sponsorship program for the Foundation, and we're proud to have one of our corporate sponsors here, a gold sponsor, Blue Pine. And I'd love for John Coben to come up. He is a Lake Bluff resident. He's the CEO and founder of Blue Pine. He'll give us a really brief snapshot of their platform. We see Blue Pine as an ambassador of preservation. And once he gets through with his little intro, I think you'll understand why. So we welcome John. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We're really pleased to be here. As Jennifer said, I'm John Coben. I'm joined by my co-founder there, Scott Rice, and our third co-founder, Ron Rother. All three of our families are longtime members of the community here in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. So we started Blue Pine here to help solve the pain points of home ownership. We all know that managing a household is stressful, it's difficult, it's increasingly complex, and nobody has enough time to keep up with it. And though we all know it's worth it to stay ahead of all of the items that you need to take care of, too many of us feel like we're falling behind. And so our goal at Blue Pine is to simplify life, to elevate the experience of being a homeowner by providing the warmth of human expertise, but powered by the efficiency of modern and intelligent software. With Blue Pine, now you've got a proactive plan and a person to help you manage that plan to really transform the way you take care of this most important space. Your dedicated Blue Pine home manager takes care of everything from scheduling to paying the bills while making sure the rates are reasonable and you're not getting too much of a Lake Forest premium added on. And while the software is really critical to making this work, don't worry if you're not a techie, or frankly, if you don't want to be in the day-to-day details, your home manager is there to take care of all of it for you. They will do everything from scheduling and just really communicating with you, keeping track of everything, so that at the end of the day, you have a valuable, complete record of how well you've maintained your home. We're often asked who Blue Pine is for. Our members include busy families with children, individuals with businesses, retirees, people with multiple homes who travel frequently, really anyone who wants less stress and more time, and I think that's probably all of us. You can choose from the plans that we offer to fit your lifestyle, and we've found that we regularly save customers hundreds and even thousands of dollars, and so we think the service really pays for itself. We're proud to support the foundation. It's really a pleasure again to be here with you guys. It's more than just a shared commitment to caring for homes. It's really about supporting the community, as I think Jennifer mentioned in her remarks. We founded Blue Pine not only to benefit homeowners, obviously, but also to support and strengthen the businesses of talented local service providers, and really to elevate the profession of home manager. These are dedicated people who are passionate about helping others in the community, and we have a growing roster who are doing a great job. So signing up for Blue Pine is easy, and it's completely risk-free. In fact, if you sign up, we give you $250 to use towards a service provider visit that you already need, and so you're ahead of the game, and if you don't find everything you're looking for, you simply cancel. Because we really want this to be about more than just household management. It's really about protecting your assets, preventing stress, and reclaiming time for the people and the moments that really matter to you the most. So thank you, and we hope you'll give us a try or pass this along to your friends and family.
Thanks, John. I'm a client of Blue Pine, and there are several other of our friends in the room that are also clients. Feel free to ask me any questions about what it's like to work with the platform. What we find really significant about having a partner like Blue Pine is that, let's say you have an historic home and you have windows that need to be worked on, right? It's kind of a hot button issue. A lot of us may get quotes for replacement windows. Having someone like Blue Pine can really help educate our community on how we can restore the proper historic windows and to get the right providers and the right subcontractors involved to do so. So that's just one example of how we'll be partnering together. So thanks again, John and Scott. So without further ado, this 100th anniversary is not about Anderson's birth, but rather the year he started his successful architectural firm. You can thank the Anderson firm for more than 200 new homes, commercial buildings, and gentlemen's farms in the Lake Forest area. Today, the names Stanley Anderson and Paul Bergmann are nearly synonymous, as Paul has shown us Anderson's fine detail work at our events throughout the years. Paul's interest in architecture began when his father was a partner in Anderson's architecture firm. He inherited Anderson's collection with more than 10,000 drawings. An attorney by trade, Paul has loved architecture and subsequently has written a book about the Stanley D. Anderson firm collection, available to you today. He served on our Preservation Foundation board, is currently the chairman on Lake Bluff's Historic Preservation Commission, and serves on the board of the Lake Bluff History Museum. Paul just received his Master's of Design Studies in Historic Preservation at the Boston Architectural College this past May with Jan Gibson. We welcome Paul as he takes us through the first few years of the Stanley D. Anderson firm collection. Thank you for being here, Paul, and all of you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. It's always such a thrill to have this many people show up for a Stanley Anderson program. I'm always so surprised and pleased to see everybody show. So this is really great. let's see if I make sure I've got the technology working here. Good. All right. I worked in my dad's firm as a kid, and one of my jobs was to pull the drawings out and put them away. And going through all of the files after he died, I realized there was a fabulous trove of houses, buildings, and histories. I published the book in 2019, but I'm still cataloging the projects today. I'm still discovering houses that are in the collection. And as Jen just mentioned, I've just also completed my master's in historic preservation. Today I'm going to focus on the first few years of the firm. The questions for today are, what was Stanley Anderson thinking in 1925, and what was he going to build? This will break down into two main areas, the English Village in downtown Lake Forest, and the City Beautiful subdivision he designed, Deerpath Hill Estates. Then I'm going to give you a close-up view of one of Stanley's very unique houses, the James Lovell House, and finally, a fast-moving picture show of the next 50 years of the firm's business, including some of my dad's houses. So let me introduce our characters. So in the center is Stanley Anderson from about 1946. On the right is his pre-World War II partner, Jim Tickner, taken in about 1940 or so. And on the left is my dad, Bill Bergmann. My dad joined Stanley in 1946 after the war. He's a generation younger than Anderson and is born in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Stanley is born in Lake Forest in 1895, attended Lake Forest College, then the University of Illinois, where he met a Peoria boy named Jim Tickner, who was then in the third year of his architectural studies. That was in 1916. In 1917, they both enlisted as officers in World War I. As a lieutenant, Stanley was assigned to General Blackjack Pershing's general staff. Hello, I'm getting louder. Wow. And Tickner went into the artillery. They were then awarded French study scholarships and went to the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris and studied at Atelier La Loupe. Anderson came home to work at Howard Van Doren Shaw for 6 years. Well, Jim Tickner went to work for D.H. Burnham and Sons, the skyscraper innovators, for several years. And as I mentioned, Bill Bergmann joined in 1946 after he had done war work at Princeton and had attended the University of Minnesota. And the firm is, the firm is 100 years old this year, and Stanley and James Tickner officially went into business May 1st, 1925. That's the date of their first partnership and public announcement of being officially in business. They had been doing quite a lot of work before 1925 under the time-old tradition of working out the back door, which we now just simply call moonlighting. At that point, they knew that Howard Van Doren Shaw was very ill, and Shaw will die in May of 1926, a year later. So I thought we would take a look at what they were seeing and what they were planning to do as the two architects launched their firm. This is a seminal period for the firm. This is at a time when there are entries for Anderson and Tickner, Anderson, Tickner, and Fox. Fox was an architect who worked for Howard Van Doren Shaw. And then even earlier entries for Anderson, Tickner, and Fox for the James Anderson Company, which I think is a licensing tactic that they were using so that they could say that they weren't really in business yet. There's a sly oral history comment that comes from Shaw's firm that the other architects at Shaw's office complained that Anderson had more work after hours than during the day when he was in Shaw's employment. And Shaw is said to have responded that maybe Anderson ought to start his own firm, which is precisely what he was planning on. So to get you oriented as we try and look at what Stanley Anderson is thinking, this is a map of downtown Lake Forest, and the blue lines you see on there, the blue horizontal line is Deerpath, and the vertical line is Bank Lane. And in 1925, you can see where City Hall is in 1899. Down at the bottom is the Deerpath Inn, which hasn't been built yet at the point of this discussion. And then over on the right is the train station in 1900. There's a marker where Market Square is, and the Methodist Church is now over on the far right at McKinley and Deerpath. We have some very good oral history that Anderson supervised and most likely designed the church for while he was at Howard Van Doren Shaw with another architect named Bertram Weber. If you get a chance to go into that church, do so. It's a beautiful church on the inside. So I'm going to show you what Anderson was planning for the English Village in downtown Lake Forest as early as 1923, and he's making plans to build a series of new buildings. And Anderson's plans are deeply rooted in the City Beautiful movement. Okay. This is Deerpath looking east from Bank Lane to the Anderson Building on Western Avenue. The three-story building that you see in the center of the photograph is the Anderson family building. We know it as the Walgreens building. So this is what it looks like in about 1920. And all of the other buildings you see in front of you are all owned, all of that land is owned by the Anderson family. And I want you to see the little red brick building that's connected to the Walgreens building. That's the Ford dealership, and that's going to change. And where you see the sign that says lunch counter, that's going to turn into Sweet's ice cream store when the Deerpath Theater building is built. So that gives you an idea of where you are in downtown Lake Forest. Now this is a reverse view of what I just showed you. And the camera is looking from Walgreens and looking west on Deerpath. The White House in the middle of the picture will become the First National Bank, now the Northern Trust. And so you can see this whole rack of buildings here. It's all a jumble of storefronts and old houses and whatnot. And I also want you to look at this Model T that's parked right in front of us with its tail hanging out in the middle of the street. Because we can now confirm that there has been 100 years of bad parking in downtown Lake Forest. Okay? Nobody's known how to park back then. They still don't know how to park today. So we get a sense of that. So from 1924 through 1932, Anderson begins remaking downtown Lake Forest. In 8 years, he will remodel, propose, or build 10 new buildings in Lake Forest. All are done in either an English Tudor or Georgian style. The Chicago Tribune, as well as most of the architectural enthusiasts that were all on board for this. And the headline, "Like a bit of High Street in some Yorkshire village," is what sets this off. This is the first reference I found calling this the English Village. And so then we get to the first building. This is a small two-story building. It's called the East of Theater Building. And it's on Deerpath next to the Anderson family building, the Walgreens building, which is on the right, and the Deerpath Theater building is on the left. This is the second of the commercial buildings, but it is on this location that the Casperson and Peterson Ford dealership was at the time when car dealers used simple storefronts. And again, the land was owned by the Anderson family. So the Anderson family has to move the Casperson and Peterson dealership out of the way so they can build the East of Theater building. So they move Casperson and Peterson around the corner onto Western Avenue. And their answer was to build this new building so that they could free up space. In the 1940s, Anderson converted it to a bowling alley. And that's where I learned to bowl. It's also where I learned to play pinball. And it's now the drive-through for the Northern Trust. Then this is the Thomas Eastwood addition on Bank Lane, completed in 1926. You can see these buildings are just falling right on top of each other as they come. To orient you, the tower of City Hall is seen in the upper right. He later added the storefronts on the building to the left. And this is Anderson's version of an English mews, a dense, narrow street of small shops. This Anderson creation of a visual connection along Bank Lane south to the soon-to-be-built Deerpath Inn, and it forms the dense fabric of the English village of narrow side streets, Bank Lane connecting to Market Square, and busy thoroughfares Western Avenue and Deerpath. And today, Bank Lane and Deerpath are being rebuilt. If you've noticed all the construction going on there, they are all reinforcing the walkability and the design concepts that Stanley started in 1925. So then we get to the Fry and Udell building on Western Avenue. This is next to the Ford dealer bowling alley building. This building still exists. Fry was an electrical contractor. Udell was a printer. Udell published the Lake Forester in this building for many years. Udell was another business that Stanley wanted to move from Deerpath so that he could build the Deerpath Theater building. We then get to the C.T. Gunn building, which many of us remember as the Midwest Bank building. So Stanley builds this on Deerpath. It was the Gunn building, then the Midwest Bank building. It's now Old National Bank. Gunn was a grocer, and he had his own orange groves in Florida, and he shipped fresh fruit to customers in Lake Forest. This building originally had 4 apartments on the 2nd floor. It's been altered, but remarkably, it retains most of its original facade. And here's a, see, wrong direction here, guys. Here we go. Okay, here is the before and after picture showing Fitzgerald's Plumbing and a vacant lot before the Gunn building was built. This is not a very pretty streetscape, and this is part of the City Beautiful concept of building a beautiful urban environment. This is on the corner of Bank Lane and Deerpath, and it's very much part of Stanley's vision for Deerpath and making Bank Lane the visual connector to the Deerpath Inn. And I should probably point out that Anderson was bidding on the Deerpath Inn project as early as 1924 and 1925. So the future designer of the Deerpath Inn was very much up in the air at that point. So I want to stop and take you for a second to look at some of the architectural details in Lake Forest. These are 3 examples of fanciful or exuberant verge boards. Shaw is renowned for the fanciful verge boards in Market Square, which is shown in the middle picture. But I want you to see the verge boards on the Gunn building on the right and on the Deerpath Theater building, which I'm going to show you next. But my point is there's a ton of beautiful architectural detail in Lake Forest, and all we have to do is stop and look at it to see it. And so we get to the Deerpath Theater building. This is 1927. Anderson conceptualized this building as early as 1924. Anderson postponed opening the theater until 1928 so he can install the sound system for the new talking movies. And this building is kitty-corner to the Gunn building that I just showed you. And we're going to stop and point out some of the details. I want you to look at the beautiful triple gable with its exposed purlin beam ends. Again, this is very Shaw-like. You can see a lot of this in Market Square. And I want you to look at the gutter collector heads. These are the copper pots that collect rainwater. They actually have a function. They slow the water down so that it begins to swirl, and it drives the water and the leaves and the acorns and all the debris down into the pipe. And these are all over downtown Lake Forest. If you take your time and look for them, they have Tudor roses. They're embellished with Tudor roses and French fleur-de-lis. And finally, I want you to take a look at the combination of slate roofs. We're always talking about roofs in this town. These slate roofs are over 100 years old. And so then here's the before and after pictures. And now you see Stanley's view of rebuilding this entire block in downtown Lake Forest. You can see the Walgreens building there, and then all of the ramshackle buildings. And I couldn't resist adding a picture of the theater's interior for those of us who remember the theater. And this is to remind us what we have lost in Lake Forest and how easy it is to lose a really strong parts of our architectural heritage. The next building that comes along is Anderson designs the First National Bank building in 1930. This is the first of his monumental country Georgian buildings, the high school, the old hospital. This is across the street, this is across Bank Lane from the Gunn building and across Deerpath from the theater. And this nexus of buildings forms the central core of Anderson's English Village. This group of buildings is the visual connector between the Deerpath Inn to the south, Market Square to the north, This intersection is the ground zero of the English Village, where busy boulevards meets side streets. And we stop and take a look at some of the details. You look at the very fine masonry, the beautiful stone cornices, and the ornamental swag garlands. Again, when you're in downtown Lake Forest, keep looking up. And so here is the before and after picture of what I showed you. Here's a picture of the bank with its 1930s first edition on the right, my dad's 1960s edition in the center, and Diana Melicar's edition in the 1980s on the far left. And it shows you how the this whole block has evolved. And finally, a picture of the interior. There's this very elegant banking room. If you get a chance, walk through the main lobby, the banking lobby at the Northern Trust. This room has been painted, but it's still an exquisite room to go and admire. We then get to the police and fire station, designed by Anderson in 1929. The left or north side of the building was designed by Frost and Granger around 1901, 1903. It was the city's tool shed. It stored snowplows and other tools for street repair. This side of the building predates Market Square, which is directly behind it. In 1929, Anderson added the right or south addition to create the police and fire station, and this building was altered to a Tudor style to add to the English Village appeal. And on the second floor, between the old fire garage doors, is a small niche. And we have to stop and ask, how many fire departments have a niche on the front of their building? This is only in Lake Forest do we get this. And the nymph is holding a cornucopia of fruits and flowers. And just below her feet is the red lamp denoting the fire garage. And on the right is Shaw's niche, found in the north building in Market Square. So it has a precedent. We then get to the Fred Held building proposal. And Anderson proposed this new building for Fred Held, the owner of a commercial laundry on the corner of Bank Lane and Illinois Road, in April of 1929. And April is an important date. This building would have been built directly across the street from the Deerpath Inn. And in April of 1929, the Deerpath Inn is just getting into its final finishing stages of construction. It'll open probably in September of 1929. Held operated the steam laundry plant on the property, and unfortunately, it was 1929 and the roar was about to go out of the roaring 20s. So I want you to look at the tower that you see on the left side of this rendering. Now this is the other rendering for this building. And if you notice where the tower is on the right, that's the same tower of what you just saw. And this is the proposal that would have faced onto Illinois Road and faced the Deerpath Inn. If the Held building had been built, Anderson would have substantially defined the English Village concept and fully extended the connection of the Deerpath Inn to Market Square. So you can see how these two buildings would have interplayed and been just essentially a pair of sister buildings. So then I'm going to take you back to the map that I showed you earlier, but this is with the completion of all the Stanley buildings, the 10 buildings that he built in Lake Forest. This shows the extent of Anderson's work in defining the English Village in downtown. And as you can see, the map is almost impossible to read with all of the lines on it and all of the new buildings in it. And then one last comment on English architecture in Lake Forest. Stanley wasn't the only one designing Tudor buildings at this time. This is the northeast corner of Bank Lane in Illinois. It's now the public parking garage and the Chase ATM station. And even gas stations wanted to be in on the Tudor architectural style. This photograph dates to about 1966, and for us old-timers, we remember it as Bud and Art's service station. So I don't know if anybody remembers Bud and Art. Now we're shifting gears a little bit. We move on to Deerpath Hill Estates at Kingmuir Road in Deerpath. While Anderson was redesigning downtown Lake Forest, he was also busily designing a new subdivision in what was considered West Lake Forest at this time. Anderson began working on the development with Henry Turnbull, the developer, on designing a City Beautiful inspired subdivision that incorporates curving streets, irregularly shaped lots, elegant homes, all delineated with stone gate posts. West Lake Forest was an area of landed country estates for wealthy Lake Foresters, and this is going to change the complexion of that area. The North Shore Interurban train line was being built just a few blocks east and would provide fast 18-minute train time, commuter times to Chicago's downtown loop at the time. And so we start out with another map. Deerpath is the principal east-west street and bisects this map. Telegraph Road, which is now known as Waukegan Road, is the left vertical edge of the map. The development is designed by Stanley Anderson's cousin at James Anderson Surveying Company. It totals over 80 acres and is designed in 3 sections. The first is on the south side of Deerpath at Waukegan Road. The second is north of Deerpath, and the third section to the east is on your right. In all, there would be 14 houses built. Anderson and Tickner would design 6, and a contract architect, William Braun, would design 4, and there's a handful of houses in here that we can't identify. And this house was designed by Anderson, and it's called Big Frenchy. Stanley was quite proud of his French eclectic style, and the firm nicknamed it Big Frenchy because they remodeled it several times. My dad remodeled this house many times over the years. And I want you to see the flared roof edges, the French doors, the brick edge coins done in dark red accents. So you can see that this house had quite an architectural impact. One of the goals of Anderson was to build many of the houses in as many different styles to display the firm's depth of talent and ability to design in many styles. This is the first house designed for Turnbull. It's on the turning circle at Kingmuir on the south side of Deerpath. This house is a facsimile, not a copy. It's a facsimile of a huge estate house in Scotland called Greywalls Gullen. Sir Edwin Lutyens built the house at Muirfield Links in Scotland. And for any of you golfers here, you will know you will know Muirfield Links is one of the most popular golf courses there. This is now a hotel. Anderson carefully reinterpreted the curved face of the house, curving a full 90 degrees. It incorporates the swan neck pediment and the Lutyens deep symmetry, all done in lovely, beautiful Wisconsin Lannon stone. The next house we get to is on the north side of Deerpath. This is not on the tour today. It's called Brown Gables for the original huge estate house that was on the site. It is a French Norman style house, which is similar but more nuanced than that of the English Tudor style, to which is highly similar. And I want you to admire the masonry work surrounding the front door at Brown Gables. This work is done by a Highwood mason named Caesar Fiocchi. He was one of the best masons in Highwood and trained several generations of masons, which is why there's so much really great masonry work in Lake Forest today. And this is another example of using your eyes when you look at buildings to see all of this architectural beauty that we have. We then get to Stan and Marty's house. This is another French Norman house that Anderson designed. When Turnbull went broke in 1932, Anderson was given this house to cover Turnbull's debts to Anderson. Cousin James Anderson would be given another house in the development, and Turnbull would labor on resolving his debt issues in this development well into the 1950s. And I want to stop a second and talk a little bit about the towers on French Norman houses. In the 1920s, American architects came to see the conical roof tower as a motif that designed French Norman style in America. In the 1920s, the firm made many of these towers. The large houses in the 1400s to the 1700s in the Normandy region in France were typically fortress houses. They weren't castles, but they were houses that could be defended from robbers and marauders as they were roaming the countryside. These tightly curved and steep towers were originally built as defensive devices. If the marauders broke through the front door on the first floor, the fight then moved to guarding the women, children, and valuables on the second floor. So imagine swinging your sword on these stairs as you defend your house. This is a bit of Errol Flynn for everybody this afternoon, but notice that the stair curls in a counterclockwise direction as you're looking down. It's swirling in a counterclockwise direction, and this will become important in a couple of minutes. This is the last house built by Turnbull. It is in the third eastern section of the subdivision. Unfortunately, it's also not on the tour. It was completed in 1931, and the Depression was going to bankrupt the development and Turnbull. This is called a French Norman eclectic house, as it has the typical conical stair tower, but also has French eclectic dormers. The dormers on the garage are the Norman-style sloped roof dormers, while the dormers on the main house have a provincial-style curved roof. So you can see the curved roof of the dormers on the main house. We then have a series of other architects. William Braun and other architects built many houses in Deerpath Hill Estates. What makes the development so unique is that all of the other architects had to have their drawings approved by Turnbull and Anderson. This is an attempt to guarantee the level of quality in the development. It's an agreement that's probably unenforceable today, but was nonetheless seen as an effective way of ensuring quality control. And our last slide from Deerpath Hill Estates is the very romantic circle gate, often called a moon gate. This capped a walkway across Telegraph Road to the proposed new country club to be built on the J. Ogden Armour Estate, Melody Farm. The gate was designed as a facsimile, again not a copy, of a stone gate at Chateau Sumer at Newport, Rhode Island. And just a final coda on this, the financial failure of Deerpath Hill Estates was many failed subdivisions in Lake Forest in the Depression. When the market crashed, home values crashed. The houses went in value from $75,000 in 1928 to $35,000 to $40,000 in 1935. It took Turnbull well into the 1950s to clear all of the land encumbrances on the properties. So I've shown you Anderson's English Village in downtown Lake Forest and Deerpath Hill Estates, two large-scale projects that helped define the architectural look and feel of Lake Forest in the 1920s. In addition to the English Village and Deerpath Hill Estates, the firm was also building a great many houses along with the horse farms. In this 5 to 7 year period, Anderson and Tickner built another 60 houses and other commercial buildings. An architect friend of mine, Scott Javor, who lives in Glencoe, helped me research this era of the firm's work. And at one point he said to me, you know, these two guys in 5 years built what other architects build in their entire careers. So there was a very prolific firm. So this is the James Lovell House. And rather than show you many pretty interiors and pretty houses from the early 1920s, I thought we'd take an in-depth look at one house so that we can enjoy all the really cool details of this. James Lovell was president of the Continental Illinois National Bank, which was the largest bank outside of New York. The Continental Bank financed almost all of the local industries, railroads, meat packers, manufacturers. In addition, Lovell was he was director of the Federal Reserve Bank here in Chicago. In 1927, he asked Stanley to design a French Norman house in Lake Forest and simultaneously a Mediterranean southern plantation in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. The Lake Forest house was completed. The Mississippi plantation was not. Lovell wanted a true French Norman house. As I explained earlier, French Norman houses are country houses from the northwest part of France. They are guarded, built with guarded gates, heavy stone walls, and typically have a conical tower. What you see here is the main facade. You can see a walled courtyard, sturdy gated entrance, and a tower into the courtyard. And so as we take a look inside that gate, we can, just peeking through the gate, notice the inner iron gate. This is part of this defensive nature. After you battered down the wooden door, now you have an iron gate you've got to climb through. And also notice the beautiful stair tower. In a moment, I'm going to show you the tightly coiled stair that's inside that tower. And here's a view of this wonderful courtyard. It has exposed stucco and wood beams above and brickwork below, with these beautiful sculpted French doors. And I can tell you that this courtyard is a joy to visit on a summer morning. We come around to the main entrance and notice the stout walls and fortress-like appearance. And I want you to look up at the top of the gable end to see a stone owl perched on the house. The owl is an emblem for the banking industry. As I mentioned, Lovell was head of the largest bank in the Midwest and sat on the Federal Reserve Board. And here's a close-up of the owl. The owl represents wealth, prosperity, and vigilance, which defines Lovell's work in the banking business, and vigilance for keeping an eye on the property. We come down, right below that is the front door, and I wanted you to see the beautiful wrought iron window screen. The screen is a cornucopia of flowers, fruits, and the house is just full of all sorts of fabulous details like this. And as we go inside, the house has a galleried living room with a cathedral ceiling. And I'm showing the view looking up at the gallery and trusses. The chandelier that you see is original to the house, and Anderson carefully studied French truss work as he designed this house. I have Anderson's book on how to design French truss work in my library. Anderson took a great deal of pride in studying the ins and outs and the finer details of French architecture. Here's the reverse view of looking down in the living room from the gallery. And you can see the huge trusses in the ceiling. These trusses actually hold the ceiling up. This isn't false work, this actually holds the building up. The trusses are mortised and tendered. See the little wood pins that you see on the outside of the trusses? Those are the tenons. Those are oak pine pins, oak pins that are holding the trusses in place. And this photograph is from 1928 and shows the original furniture in the house. And so I promised that I would show you this tightly coiled stairwell. And so this is part of this French fortress idea. And here we get to looking at the stairs, looking down. Now the stair that I showed you before, the stairs were going counterclockwise, and if you look at this, you can see that the stairs are going clockwise. And the joke in the firm was that the draftsman designed so many of these circular stairs that they reversed direction just to avoid the boredom of redesigning the same thing over and over again. So now we're going to transition once again. We've looked at what Stanley and Jim Tickner were doing in the 1920s up through basically 1932. There's a huge pause here in the firm's work as the Depression has wiped out so many people. Most architects were out of work. But this is a period of transition for the firm as it moves out of the French, Norman, Tudor period into its country Georgian period. Country Georgian is not pure Georgian architecture. It's a pleasant combination of Georgian, federal, colonial, and other traditional styles. And it's meant to show off and enjoy living the good life in comfort and in style. So this is the first National Bank building, which I showed you earlier. This is the first of Anderson's major country Georgian buildings. We're going to go through the rest of the slides pretty quickly, just to give you an idea of the breadth of the firm's work after the 1920s period. And no review of Stanley Anderson's work is complete without taking a look at King Brevard. This is an 80-bed retirement facility built in 1932. While the entire building industry was out of work, Anderson began the King Brevard project. Suzanne King Brevard left a very large trust fund to build this facility for spinsters. It's a home for spinsters of gentle birth and good breeding. And this is the headline from the Chicago Tribune. It's a send-up of the language that's in the will. But spinsters, it means unmarried, widowed, or unmarried to begin with. Of gentle birth means you're broke. And good breeding. Good breeding means that you're acceptable to come into the home. Part of Suzanne's trust, or most of Suzanne's trust, pays all of your expenses for living in this home. So if you're accepted into King Brevard, you're here for life. And so for many of us who are getting to the point of looking at retirement homes, it's like, hey, this is kind of a cool idea. Maybe we'd like to apply. So it's my understanding the trust fund still exists today. So the building is built on 30 acres in Hinsdale. It's actually now Burr Ridge. And this is where Anderson really polished his country Georgian style. And I want you to notice the triangular pediment and oval window in the pediment. And we don't have time to see all the interiors, but I sure wish we could get a busload of people together to go down and see this, because it's really just a fabulous place. So here's a close-up of the front door. And above the front door, you can see a closer view of the triangular pediment and oval window. But I really want you to focus in on the swan's neck pediment over the front door. You're going to see some more of that. And here's a side view of the building that gives you an idea of the size of this building. And I want you to notice that each wall section is done in a different material: stone, brick, cedar siding. Anderson is trying to give the effect of multiple additions over time, when in fact the entire building is built all at once. Okay? And here is Suzanne. This is a painting of Suzanne King as a debutante in the 1890s. She was always described as one of the most beautiful and best dressed women of her time. All the articles that I read about her mention her Titian red hair. And as you can see, she's quite a beauty. And she's also the aunt of Ginevra King of F. Scott Fitzgerald fame. So that's a book coming up on its 100th anniversary. And here's the dining room. And note the swan's neck pediment, which follows the motif of the front door. Mrs. Magoon was the house mistress. She came from Scotland to run King Brevard, and she ran a quite formal household. She required that any resident coming down to dine must wear makeup, skirt, and stockings. Residents could be served in their room otherwise, but you can imagine living here for free for the rest of your life. So, as we say goodbye to King Brevard, we admire the wrought iron fence medallions that represent the wonderful formality of the Georgian style. That's 1932. We come to 1935, and here's Lake Forest High School. The high school this year is celebrating its 90th birthday, and so they're getting ready to have a great many festivities that are coming along soon. And have you seen all the construction going on at the high school? I was on a construction tour at the high school this week, and I can tell you there's been a substantial number of changes at the high school. It's really surprising to see what's occurred there. And here's a detailed picture of the front door. Like King Brevard, the high school has a monumental front door, this with a clamshell pediment. And I love the fact that the kids all get photographed for both prom and for graduation coming through that door now. I think it's just really cool that the kids in this era are able to enjoy that. And then here we have a wide-angle view of this. You can see my dad's addition all the way over on the far right when he added the auditorium wing in 1960. And you can see the school unobstructed by summer foliage and showing its full presence as the prettiest high school in Illinois. It was voted in Architectural Digest in 2017 as the prettiest high school in Illinois. We then get to the Arthur Dixon House, and you might think that this looks kind of a little bit like the high school with a triangular pediment and oculus window. Well, it probably should. He was the head of the school board for the high school that built the high school. So, and here's the stair in his house, a lovely, elegant stair. We then find the William McIlvaine house. This is a facsimile, not a copy, it's a facsimile of a pre-revolutionary house in Owings Mills, Maryland. And here's the McIlvaine hallway and stair. And note that the floor is done in shiny hard tiles. Mrs. McIlvaine was quite a horseman, and Stanley built a stable for her on the property. The floor was done in hard tiles so that she and her riding friends could walk through the living room with their riding boots on when they came in to have lunch. We get to Lake Forest Hospital, now gone. This is Anderson's fourth monumental country Georgian building, and I'm still so sorry that we couldn't find a way to adaptively reuse this building. It was just a charming presence in town. Here's the rear of the hospital. This is before my dad went and put all of the additions on the hospital, but you can see the wonderful formalism of the country Georgian style. We then get on to Twin Doors. This is one of my most favorite projects of the firm. Twin Doors was built by Nikki and Bill Clow. It was a second marriage for both of them. They both brought high school, college-age kids to the marriage, and they built a house for themselves on one side of the courtyard and built a second similar house for the kids on the other side of the courtyard. And this is the main house for the parents. And so this is the kids' house. It's directly across the courtyard. This has what's called the big room. The big room is one large game room in the center of the house. Rather than having a living room, it has a game room. The room is 40 feet by 60 feet, so it's big. And in it the house comes equipped with every single toy a kid from 1939 would need, okay? Balls, bats, tennis rackets, skis, a beer bar, a Wurlitzer, a pool table, you name it, this 40 by 60 room had it. And the Clouds had a very formal lifestyle at the time. Each night the kids were in town, they would have to dress for dinner and then walk across the courtyard. Dressing for dinner meant gentlemen wore jackets and ties, ladies wore skirts, blouses, and makeup. They would go across the courtyard, knock on the door, the butler would open the door and invite them in for supper. So this is the kids' house, this is the front door. Notice the pediment and the federal style fan over the front door. And then we get to the front door of the main house, and you can see the lovely fan light, the side lights, and the 6-panel door. So this is twin doors. And now we shift gears a little bit further. We get into a couple of my dad's houses. This is the Huntington Henry house, done in 1954 by my dad, Bill Bergmann. The focus has been on Stanley in the 1920s, but we need to mention my dad at least a little bit. My dad did this house in French provincial style to emulate the smaller houses around Versailles. The client was a devoted Francophile and wanted the house of exacting proportions. So my dad studied French design styles for several months while planning this, and you can see the wonderful planning in the French mansard roof and some of the other details. So here's the living room, and you get to enjoy this just wonderful riot of color. And I want you to notice all the paneling in the room. The paneling and cornices are done in plaster in a French style of paneling, which in 1954 was very expensive, and I imagine is even more expensive in today's world. And just to complete one of the themes today, here's my dad's take on a circular stair. This is not in a tower. It's not built to defend the house. It's just meant to be a very elegant stair. And our last house, this is the Michael Cudahy house. My dad built this house in 1965. It's my dad's take on the country Georgian style with a center mass and hipped roof with 2 side wings. The side wings have pedimented gable ends, and this is what modern international style interpretations of a Palladian center mass property looks like. And here's a design. Here's this beautiful pale green living room. And then a lovely dining room done in a really smashing bright red, cheery red color. And that brings us to sort of the end of where we are. We've seen the English Village, we've seen Deerpath Hill Estates, we've seen the first years of the seminal years of the work, and then a fast look of 50 years of the firm's work. So there you have it for today. So there is, as Jennifer has mentioned, a wine stroll afterwards, and then from the other plug the other shameless plug, buy my book. So I have that up there. So if you would like, we can do that too. So Jennifer.
Does anyone have any questions for Paul? Or we have to.
Great.
Is James Anderson still in existence, the firm?
The James Anderson Surveying Company is the cousins to the Stanley Anderson firm. They are still in business. It's now the 4th generation of Andersons are running the company, and the offices have moved to Lake Bluff. So they're still very much in business and are carrying on. So, Jeff.
It seemed as though Stanley Anderson was able to kickstart his firm quickly because his family owned a lot of real estate in downtown Lake Forest. How did that happen?
So without going through the entire history of the Anderson family, very quickly, James Anderson emigrates from Scotland in 1859 and homesteads here. He is given property for working here, opens up the Anderson family grocery store and other buildings, and so there's generations after generations. Stanley is actually the 3rd generation of Andersons working in Lake Forest. His father, Will Anderson, ran the Anderson family store. It was a dry goods store. So they were a long-time family in Lake Forest. And as Susan Benjamin just pointed out, the firm still exists under the James Anderson Surveying Company moniker now. I think that's the 4th or maybe 5th generation of Andersons in the business. So.
Showed a picture of the high school door, the front door. Now, when the school is being restored or remodeled, whatever, are they going to bring it back to that door?
Yes, we went on the construction tour of the high school. They've taken the doors out to revamp the stairs leading up to the front door. Now, I'm told they're not going to do anything other than sand down and paint and polish the front doors. So the doors themselves and the hardware will remain original to the building.
Aren't the doors have windows though?
The door has been modified to have windows, yes. So every once in a while, the Americans with Disabilities Act gets in the way. I'm sorry. ADA. Well, the ADA says you need windows in the doors. So you get windows in the doors. So yeah, over there.
Is the home that we're going to have the reception at this afternoon, is that a house that's won an award for preservation from the Lake Forest?
Yes.
Yes, it has. It has gotten, so all of Deerpath Hill Estates is in a National Historic Register district, which I worked on 10, 12 years ago. And the house itself that we're going to Stan and Marty's house. That's the house that Stan was given in payment of debts. And that house has received a preservation award from the Preservation Foundation. So Jim will probably be happy to show you the little plaque of his house. So, okay. Other comments? So, good. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you again for being here for this wonderful talk. Paul, you're amazing, as always.